have all the farms. It's not possible to be in this room. And so I truly appreciate your passion, your vision, your courage, and everything that you do. And I'm so happy to be back here in Croatia. The last time I was here in Croatia was over 7 years ago. And we were with my father and my mother and my brother. We were visiting lots of different farmlands, lots of different warehouses to find a new place to give you Helichrysum. So for a lot of you that don't know the story with Helichrysum, Helichrysum was actually being harvested into extinction. And so to prevent that, my father realized that the only way to do that was to plant it. So we searched far and wide for all sorts of different farms, all sorts of different properties, and we only picked the best because of seed to seal. We visited many farms, and the first thing that my father would test would be the soil. And if the soil wasn't good, it was an immediate deal breaker. It didn't matter if the distillery was good, it didn't matter if the machines were good. What mattered to him most was the soil and how the soil was treated and taken care of. And if you don't know your soil, then you don't know your oil. But I've had an awesome and fantastic time here, especially returning. And our farms hold such a special place in my heart. But Croatia was the very last farm that my dad built and worked on. And I want to talk to you about farms because they are the soul and the roots of Young Living. They are who we are, and without them, we're nothing. So the first and last farms that my dad brought into the Young Living family were here in Europe. The first ever partner farm is located in Provence, France. Nicholas seems to like that farm a lot, I don't know why. But the Semi-Lauraton farm served as my dad's farming university, his practices, his education in his beginning years. And the last farm that my dad established was right here in Croatia, the Dalmatia aromatic farm. And some of you got to visit it today, and for those of you who haven't, you'll get to see it tomorrow. It's a beautiful, beautiful farm. But it represents the culmination of his farming education. And France or Croatia are the bookends to our farming roots. By studying the principles that my dad laid out for all of us in their creation, we're better equipped to step into a brighter future. But it all started in Provence. At the beginning of my dad's essential oil education, he met a Frenchman named Jean-Noël. Nicholas also likes to like this Frenchman for some reason, I don't know why. But in 1990, Jean-Noël came to California from France to attend a whole life expo. From his home in Provence, he brought with him several liters of oils, home distilled lavender oil specifically, and he was hoping to sell them at this expo. But also in attendance at this expo happened to be my dad. He displayed his oil-infused supplements at the Young Living booth to potential new customers, and during a break in his presentations, Jean-Noël happened to be walking by the Young Living booth, and he immediately noticed the oils. He was super intrigued, and that was the beginning of a bond that would forever change the world as we know it. After discussing their shared passion for essential oils, Jean-Noël invited my dad back to France, and there he said he had some connections with some of the greatest essential oil innovators at the time. And my dad, who was always so hungry and passionate to learn, wanted to learn from the best and was beyond eager to visit. So among some of these essential oil pioneers Jean-Noël knew was a man by the name of Helichrysum, who is considered the father of distillation. Known worldwide, actually, as the father of modern distillation at the time, Henry was one of the foremost experts of the exact science of aromatic distillation. And for years, isolated on his beautiful, lonely French mountain, he tinkered away and mastered growing, harvesting, and distilling essential oils. And my dad desperately wanted to meet him. Now, the mountain where Henry lived was very close to Jean-Noël's home in Provence. And my dad frequently traveled to France seeking audiences with Henry and other oil gurus, but Henry kept his distance. He wasn't open to speaking with curious Americans. And Henry had an abiding love and respect for the oils. And like my dad, he considered them supremely important to the world, even spiritually significant. And one night, after many months of pleading, Henry came to Jean-Noël's home and met with my dad. And over dinner, they discussed the oils and their importance to humanity. And Henry sensed something in my dad, someone who was worthy to be educated in the science of their cultivation. So, Henry invited my dad to his secluded mountain to study with him, and the next day they began their lessons. This was the start of his agricultural education. And Jean-Noël and Henry became my dad's teachers and taught him all that they knew about growing and harvesting pure, healthy crops. With their help, the first Young Living Partner farm was started. Simeon Marathon marks the beginning of Young Living's focus on clean, controlled farming. And from Provence, my dad brought home a profound understanding of the importance of farming and the role that it would play in the essential oil movement. Eventually, this would take him to here, to Croatia. And it all ended here in Split. And I was lucky enough to be with my dad on the trip to the Dalmatia farm that was purchased and built. And I remember inspecting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres of farmland with my dad. I didn't get to go visit the beautiful national park you got to visit today. I didn't get to go to the beaches. I got to go see farms and cows. It was magical. And by this time, he was an expert, dare I say the world's authority of aromatic crop cultivation. He knew exactly what he was looking for. We drove from farm to farm, looking at cows and more cows and some tractors. But we were comparing and testing soils, equipment, and teams. And on this particular trip, we were looking for the perfect place to cultivate Helichrysum, an oil that had recently captured his attention due to your demand and the possible extinction of it. So I remember constantly being exhausted. The jet lag made it almost impossible for Joseph, my mom, and I to keep up with him, but my dad seemed to be unaffected by it. While we were, here, he was about 4 hours ahead of us, and we were always behind, and he was somehow in second gear, just throttling forward and staying for it. I think it had something to do with Nietzsche or something like that. But sometimes, I just kind of wanted to knock him out, let him sleep for a few hours, go night-night, let us catch up. But no, we kept going. Not every farm that we visited met his standards, and it was very disappointing to get to these farms and look at all the different areas, look at all the different farms, look at all the different materials, just to find out that it would not meet our standards, and we would have to go to the next one. But one of the many skills that my dad had honed during his education in Europe was the ability to taste the soil and taste the differences between good and bad soil. He also had a skill in tasting the different isolates and compounds in the soil and telling you exactly how much pH content was in it. He had trained his tongue to detect the nuanced sensations of acidity and important nutrients. And I remember shortly after arriving at a potential farm, he would ask to be taken to the fields. That was his first thing. As soon as we got to a new location, he wanted to be taken immediately to the fields. And so when we went to the fields, he'd crouch low, sift the soil through his sand, taste it, and if the soil wasn't up to his standards, he immediately went on to the next farm. This was the immediate deal breaker for him. So even if the infrastructure, the team, the materials, the machines, everything, the location were perfect, if the soil was not fit, it was not fit for Young Living crops. We do not make any compromises when it comes to any of your products. And that's why sometimes you'll go months without having products, because we do not cut corners. We provide you the best quality product in the world. Am I right? But he would make that decision solely off tasting a smidgen of oil. Now later on in life, I called him out on this. I said, there is no way you can taste the soil and tell me exactly what's in the soil. Oh, but how I was wrong. Once again, I said there was no way you could taste the things in the soil accurately enough to know if it was good ground. But with a mischievous glint in his eye, he challenged me and said, "Wanna bet?" Don't ever bet with my dad, you lose. He took me outside to the field and put some oil in my hand and said, "When we get home, take the soil to the lab and test it. And I'll tell you exactly what's in it." So in his other hand, he grabbed a pinch of the same soil, put it on the tip of his tongue, and said, "It's a 7 on the pH scale." So as soon as we got home, that was the first thing that I did. I didn't even go home. I said, you know what, drop me off at GHQ. I'm gonna go to the lab, and I'm gonna prove you wrong, and I'm gonna get some money. Oh, how excited I was. We got to the lab, put the soil in the machine, and it registered at a 6.9. So I lost. But he could actually do it. And like I said, he always said, if you do not know your soil, you don't know your oil. So when we arrived at Dalmatia, Dad was immediately impressed with the growing conditions. The soil met his standards and it contained the necessary elements to sustain the crops he wanted to grow. Helichrysum is very similar to lavender in that it thrives in rocky soil. The looser the soil, the harder it is to grow. And an added bonus to this land was that it was naturally occurring rocky composition. To my dad, this was an excellent sign and a great sign that a healthy crop could grow here. So Dad brought the farm along with a nearby space where he would build a distillery, which some of you got to see today. It's a beautiful building and a beautiful distillery. But we had to get to work immediately. Thanks to Zoran, there in the back, Dalmatian's farm manager, and his team, a healthy crop of Helichrysum was previously planted and ready to be harvested. The problem with this was that the Croatian government only allowed us about a 55-day harvest period for Helichrysum each year. So we have a very short time window to harvest the Helichrysum. And in order for us to take full advantage of the short window, we had to build a distillery in 19 days. But undeterred by the challenge, my dad and Zoran got to work. And Dad quickly went to the local markets, local areas, and he purchased all the necessary materials to build a distillery. The boilers were shipped from France, the separators came from Utah, and we ordered so much so fast, there actually weren't enough trucks to deliver all the equipment to the warehouse. So to keep construction on schedule, Dad and I bought trucks from local businesses to make up the difference. The Dalmatia farm team worked tirelessly alongside my dad to get the distillery operational, and it was a marvel to watch them work. I just got to sit in the back on a chair and be like, woo, go Dad. But I'm pretty sure we hold the record for the fastest assembly of a distillery in the world, also along with Fort Nelson, which was built in a very short time period as well. With all the equipment arriving on time, the first distillations at the Dalmatia Distillery and Farm began on June 19th, 2015, exactly 19 days from when my dad bought the farm. Today it produces, yes, an absolute marvel. But today it produces Helichrysum, rosemary, thyme, hyssop, and melissa. And Jean-Noel and his team in France, Zoran and his team here in Croatia, alongside with all of our 23 corporate and more now partner farms, they uphold our foundation of a toxic-free farming around the world. I believe so deeply in our farms. And Dalmatia would be the last farm that my dad would bring into the Young Living family. But he believes so much in our farms, and the lengths that he went to, the amount of hours that he lost sleep on to make sure that you could have the best product. He wanted to make sure that everybody could have the best products in the world, the best quality oil in the world. And he would lose sleep over that. And he wouldn't cut corners, but he made sure it was possible for all of you. He believed that the only way to keep chemicals and pollutants out of our oils was to control the planting, the harvesting, and the distillation process ourselves. And that's why we have seed to seal. And you've seen it firsthand today, and you got to be part of that process as well. But our farms represent our commitment to toxin-free living. They are the embodiment of our mission to guide the world to a cleaner way of life. Dalmatia holds a very special place amongst all of our farms. It's the exclamation mark at the end of my dad's work to build a foundation for the future of Young Living. Now, like I said, over these next days, for those of you who haven't visited the farm, you'll get to visit the farm. But when you do visit the farm, and now that you have, it's weird that you guys haven't at the same time. But remember that the farms are the epicenter of clean living. The farms define who we are. Our farms are our roots. So even though you visited one today, go visit all of them, go get to know them. My dad was a huge visionary. He was always thinking ahead and looking for new challenges. And I think that for him, it wasn't completing the challenge or the goal of a new farm. And that part wasn't the rewarding part of farm, but rather it was the journey of completing that and getting it done for all of you. So the last thing that I'll share with all of you is remember that someday when we reach our goals, whether that's being silver, visiting all the farms, or whatever it may be, don't think about the goals and don't remember about the goals. It won't be the goal that's meaningful, it'll be the journey that's meaningful. Thank you all so much. Have a great night.